Hello, today we will be playing Nerus. So last time we completed chapter 1, which ended the story between Elisa and Bidey. So now we're going to begin chapter 2 and see what this is about. A flash of light swallows everything as the water starts violently running through my feet. The tides calm down and the light gives place to a vast space, much greater than the stuffy room I was in. I am surrounded by a body of water as large as the sea, with countless red threads emerging from it and rising endlessly into the sky. The horizon is populated by water and red lights as far as the eye can see. The sky is pitch black. There are no clouds or even stars in sight, only red stripes. As I take in the sight, the pattern of something unexpected happening starts to settle. The last time the device activated, I lost consciousness and was shown some sort of vision. I got teleported to some strange location. Before I lose my mind, let's try to understand the situation. The last time I remember waking up was back in that dormitory. My memory was 2 months of a mess back then, but thinking about it, I realized I had been reliving those few days Elisa and Body spent in Samir's levy. When I fell back asleep, presumably upon coming into contact with the device, the vision went on until they solved their case. Only then I woke up and was able to leave the room. Is that all? No, I do remember seeing something before Body Elisa, Nerus and Sax's story. But that ended rather abruptly. I can't remember it as clearly. The very last moments, right before Sax died, feel especially fuzzy. I don't know what that thing that chased me after leaving the room is, and if it's related to my situation. And regardless, I was guided to both safety and what I thought was the next vision to be shown to me. Is that important at all to some of these events? I do seem to be going through an amnesiac episode, so maybe I am here to restore my memories, or is that too naive of a thought? So I assume I'm in danger and be suspicious of what is being shown to me? And how does this place fit in all this? My eyes traveled to the device in my hand. Why did it take me here instead of showing me something? I spin my surroundings and look up at the sky. That's when I see the most strange thing yet fall up. There's a point at which the thread starts to split and twist into unnatural ways, becoming more like branches or perhaps roots before converging at a single point. They twist and tangle together until they form layer upon layer of red, seeming up into a massive red tree floating high in the sky. The tree gives off a somewhat relaxed air, floating there, before being held up only by these thin threads despite its massive size. Nothing has been making sense ever since I woke up in that dark room, so why not throw the laws of gravity out the window too? That looks interesting, I suppose. I say as I start walking toward it. I soon noticed that I am not getting closer to the trail at all. Confusion and frustration swell up inside me, but I inhale a long breath and try to cool down. Becoming hysterical won't help me. First, I need to make sure I'm not imagining or seeing things wrong. I'll turn back and memorize the location of the thread closest to me before I sprint toward the tree. After a while, I haven't gotten any closer to the large red body, and when I look back, I see that the threads are still in the same position I remember them being. I can't make any logical sense out of it, but it would seem I'm able to move from this position. Just, what's going on? Asking between gasps. It's then that the white device vibrates, and what happens next startles me enough to make me jump. A voice comes out of it. Welcome to the carcass. How may I be of service? A high-pitched, garbled voice speaks out. The carcass. I endure the ominous sounding name and bring the little machine in my face. The screen is still black, but I have no doubt the voice came from this thing. What is this place? You are currently located in record stores. I wait for it to finish spewing that number before asking my next question. Record stores, is that part of a larger facility? I'm not sure to what degree you call this area part of a facility, but that's what the voice is implying. Very apart statement. Could you rephrase that? Is this some kind of prison or factory? What kind of place what kind of device is this anyway? I asked in a slightly irritated tone. Very apart statement. Perhaps you meant to ask about 1. The carcass, 2. Record stores, 3. The time egg. This machine is very stupid. I suppose I should ask one question at a time. Tell me about the carcass. After a second, the device came back to life. The carcass is a facility counting with the latest advancements in solar technology and magic, as well as a terraforming and serial producing tools, will also count with a large library of records. Why a diverse facility? I can't help but feel disappointed by that answer. However, that word soup means nothing to me. Who runs this facility? I asked, trying to get more meaningful information. The idea that I was kidnapped and locked up by someone has been circling in my head from the start, and as if that was the case, maybe I'll remember something if I know who this facility belongs to. I'm afraid I don't understand this question. Would you like to ask me something else? Of course, I shook my head. Tell me about this record storage location then. Record storage contains memories from planet Earth 3041 AD or events related to that date. But was that not what I was watching in the other room? Very apart statement. Could you rephrase that? A jealous suspicion runs down my spine, filling me with a cold feeling. I suddenly remembered that as I was entering this place, I briefly detected another presence. That detail, alongside the way the machine refuses to answer most of my questions, makes me consider that perhaps that second presence had concealed itself within the machine somehow. Am I being paranoid? It wouldn't be crazy than anything that has happened so far. Can I trust that all this about the record storage isn't made up? Let's call this present Mr. X. Mr. X could be an incompetent customer service AI, or it could be someone talking through this device pretending to be that. Even if the second is true, for now, I should play along and pay attention to what Mr. X is willing to reveal to me. I am afraid that without instructions I won't be able to escape this place, or that something else dangerous will come along and I'll be on my own. There's no reason to risk getting into more trouble yet. Try to gather information and wait for the right time to act. Fine. What is time egg? What you are holding is a time egg. It is a device designed to decipher and read the red threads in record storage. It was seen until recently this time egg was set to automatic mode. Oh? What's that? When automatic mode, the time egg will take the user through the requested set of records, assuming they are available. This particular time egg was set to return to manual mode after the last record finished playback. This all sounds very convenient. If I understand right, that was being pulled into this place, in this space, and something about unconscious. Perhaps this isn't my first visit to this place, but the first time I'm here while awake. Anyway, it feels as if this strange prison judge I had matured enough to be left to my own devices. But what am I supposed to do now? How do I use this time egg? You may see a large space around you. These are other record storage rooms. Visible, they are not accessible except through the appropriate terminals. You should, however, be able to access the threads corresponding to record storage. Yes, start with a stupid number. I'm pleasantly surprised to actually hear it stop. This increases the chances of this being someone trying to trick me into thinking they are an AI, but I decided to let it slide. You simply need to attach the time egg to a thread and you will be prompted to select the desired record. I want to near a set of threads. It seems like these are the only ones I can physically get closer to. Hesitant, I raise the time egg and touch one of the threads with it. Like a knife cutting through the mess, the thread cuts through the egg until it's going through the center, and then the screen turns on. I let out a gasp as the thread unravels into many smaller ones, and the time egg projects some sort of graphic right in front of my face. The egg is stuck in place, so I let go of it and take a step back. What is this? Some sort of timeline? There seems to be some branching, but it all merges back together soon after, and there are dates running off to the side. The obnoxious machine speaks once again. Warning: analysis of recent conversation logs reveal lack of training in or cognitive capabilities from the user. Would you like to activate tutorial mode? I'm tempted to punch the damn thing, but in my feeble physical state, I will only hurt myself. Yes, whatever. This display shows the records currently stored within a time egg in the approximate chronological order. You can select whichever record you wish to review by tapping it on a swipe down to review older records. It is also possible to hide unwanted records. In order to aid you in your education, from now on, these conversations will also be recorded in the form of logs to revisit to the user's convenience. The time egg will also record the user's cognitive process in order to further improve the user experience. By swiping to the left, you will be able to access future features. I sat through a rather lengthy explanation of Ed's features. I didn't understand most of what the machine was saying, but it did mention it was being recorded, so I opened a new menu the way it had instructed and tapped the backlog button to review it. I sat through a rather lengthy explanation of Ed's features I didn't understand most. Huh? I closed the backlog. I decided it would be the best to get by without it. Anyway, you mentioned all records currently stored or in here. Is the story I just watched about the Abbey mystery still here? Very poor statement. I searched the damn thing and check if that's the case myself, but as I swept down, a bewildered frown starts forming my face. There's a record corresponding to the time of the Abbey murder incident, yes, but there is so much more. Further down, more branches lead to the Abbey incident, and nearly at the bottom is Saxon Nerus' story almost 1,000 years before everything else. But what really catches my eyes is seeing a record below even that from a specified date. I try to tap it, but the timing only lets out a loud buzz in response. Warning: data corrupted. What happened to it? The time egg was unable to recover all data after a deletion attempt. Huh? I suppose I can't check this record, but I'll try to remember this. Was it me that tried to delete it, or did someone else use this time egg before I did? That question might hold a clue about my predicament. Would you like me to finish the releasing process? No. Leave it be, I say as I go over the timeline again. I guess a second strange detail. There is some symbol on top of the records of Sachs in the Nerus story. Is that a pause icon? What does this icon mean? The playback for this record was interrupted before it reached completion. Oh, can I resume it? I would see an affirmative answer for the time being, and then I started to consider my options. It seems in addition to records retrieved from this thread, I still have unseen records from and after this first story. Thinking about it, it felt as if something was missing while I witnessed Bonnie and Alicia's story, especially at the end when Frank turned to Senate. Since I was shown one after the other, I don't think it's a stretch to say there must be a connection between the two stories I saw so far. Not to mention, as faint as there are two parallels I can draw between them. For instance, let's look at Bonnie and Alicia. Bonnie is a crafty crocodile with a straight relationship with his family, who ran away to look for a different profession. Alicia is albino with a preserved personality that only really seems to appreciate her vegetarian partner. The nature of the relationship is different, but there are some parallels we can trace between them and Sachs and Nerus. The deeper this connection, Alicia's dreamed of bringing some of Nerus' memories and perceive some link between Sachs and Frank. It isn't much, but I can't ignore the fact that there are enough similarities for me to notice in the first place. We can say there aren't similarities that haven't become apparent yet. I might be grasping at straws, but as long as I have a little information as I do, I can't afford to discard any possibility. Leaving that aside, now speaking of demons on Earth remind me about how the shapeshifters would speak about angels. Sachs mentioned that shapeshifter activity produces some sort of long-term damage to mortal worlds. Could shapeshifters be the demons who are blamed for the wild monsters on Earth? If we go even further, maybe the shapeshifters are to blame for Earth's ruin state in 3041 AD somehow. Anyway, there's a tissue connecting both stories, but I don't really know anything about it. Perhaps the answer to this mystery lies in the events leading to the second battle of the Aeon. Well, one way to find out. I didn't have any use for them, so following the machine's instructions, I hid the records for the Abimur incident in the corrupted record. Then I got to work. So this is the device, the time egg, I think it's called. So what it shows here are different periods that you can select to go to. So it expands from 2151 AD all the way up to 34, all the way to 3041. It goes all the way to 3041, which would be the era Alicia and Bonnie were in. So I wonder what's going to happen once we reach this time period with Alicia and Bonnie. Are we going to figure out what happened to the planet, or what was causing, or we're going to figure out what happened, because there were, I think, 19 or 18 days left until something happened when we finished chapter 1. So I wonder, like, as we get up here, we're going to figure out what happened or what's about to happen to Alicia and Bonnie in their world. So, like you saw just now, there are some similarities and parallels between the different characters from the prologue in chapter 1. Like Alicia, she has red eyes. She's very reserved, and she doesn't really have that many people she bees with. She be out. When she got red eyes, she don't have that many people that she knows that she goes with. So Bitey is a person that she values a whole lot because that's the only person that she really knows a lot about, and she really bees around with a whole lot. And the same can be said about Nerus. He has red eyes and white fur like Elisa does. He has like red eyes and white or blonde hair, I think. And he's also very reserved, and he doesn't really have that many friends. He's pretty much all to himself and just really quiet. So when Sats came, his relationship with him grew over time, and later on he valued Sax a lot more, and that he really but he really got to learn a lot more about Sax, and he valued Sax a lot more as a person because he was the only one he really got to spend time with, since he doesn't have really that many friends. I mean, he does probably have a few friends like other state sisters, but they don't often talk to each other that much because they're busy with their duties. So there's still a lot of parallels between Sax and Nerus and Elisa and Bitey. So this one here is the only one they can pick. It looks like Nerus' bedroom, so perhaps we may actually get to see Nerus again. I believe eventually we'll get up to 3041 AD, and figure out what happened with Elisa and Bitey, what ultimately happened or was about to or could happen in the world, since there's only 19 days left for them. Because when the prologue with Sax and Nerus ended, in chapter 1 with Bitey and Elisa started, we jumped almost 1,000 years from 2151 AD up to 3041 AD. So like 800 years, something like that, into the future. So as soon as we're done with this part right here, we're going to go to this part, I assume, and this will be 3020, which is really in around the time Bitey and Elisa as well, but this part here is 21 years before the events of chapter 1. So maybe we'll know more about Bitey, but not Elisa, since Elisa is a young girl and Bitey's a lot older. We might see Bitey in here. But anyway, let's go ahead and see what happens in this part here. Initializing playback. I felt someone nudging me, so I slowly opened my eyes. Before my vision could refocus, my nose was already being assaulted by a mix of contradictory smells. A soft soap cologne mixed with an acidic, stomach-churning stench. The white fur and the black soda above me both came into focus. Nerus was holding me close to his chest, fast asleep. What a rare sight it was, him slumbering with his clothes on. How long had passed since I sensed life evaporating from me? Since my transformation was complete, putting it into sacks and bringing me back? Despite how uncomfortable I felt, dirty and smelling like a corpse, my mind was lucid, and the scene I found myself in made perfect sense to me. That could only mean I have succeeded. I have exceeded my body's limits, gambling my identity for a chance to remember my time at sex. But in the end, I have emerged as a victor. I got a little scared at how raspy the cackle that came out of my throat sounded. Hundreds of feathers and scales were pulling inside my shirt and on my back, making a squishing sound when I moved. What a macabre waterbed. I appreciated Nerus' cuddles, but this was unacceptable. At this risk, I was going to leave him stinging like death as well. I needed to clear. Slowly, I took a hold of his arm and lifted it. Nerus was easily capable of overpowering me, but even I could handle him if he was asleep like this, although he was still very heavy. Free from his grip, I patted Nerus on the head before jumping off the bed. I threw my arms high up, stretching my still sore muscles. My bones were popping back into place, awakening from their long 200 years of sleep. Just 200 years, but it felt much longer than that. Being so many safe sisters had taught me nothing could beat the feeling of one's original body. I would need to be extra silent, and then want to alert several of my presence before waking Nerus up. I plugged the bathtub and started filling it with water while I took off my sticky clothes. I submerged myself in the water, enjoying its warmth. It was so nice how big everything at Nerus' home was. I started thinking about home, and I wondered how my siblings were doing. They were probably fine. The siblings were too dutiful to let something like the death of some of their brothers distract them from their sacred duty. They were similar to safe sisters in that sense. At least that's what I wanted to believe. I was fine. They didn't need to shed any tears for me. How many of them knew we were alive all along? Well, Nerus definitely must have known, I thought. And he wouldn't have let our brothers mourn in vain, right? Nerus definitely must have known, I thought. And he wouldn't have let our brothers mourn in vain, right? If he did, I need to give him a good scolding. I cackled again, relishing in images of his reaction once he learned I had kept my memories. I had managed to keep my memories, yes. That last thought was like a needle piercing a bubble of nostalgia containing my thoughts. The most likely truth was that not many knew I and the others had survived. That was the impression I had gotten from that conversation I had with him right before my sickness worsened. What I did wasn't a little act of mischief. The fact we were alive was secret. Or rather, the fact we had been alive as safe sisters. Before the Battle of the Aeon, I was little more than a common soldier, but my intuition told me things had changed. I wasn't going to be the same old Obley they knew anymore. I would have to carry the burden of many lives as a sort of niche at safe sister and the nuns I wasn't supposed to possess a descendant. Osiris wouldn't be happy about this. Will I take the mantle of the rebellious brother from now on, much like Sax was his family's problem child? Archetypes still worked in funny ways, but that didn't mean our relationship had to change, right? My brothers would receive me with open arms as they always did. I wanted to see them again. While drying myself with a towel, I stepped out of the bathroom. I was wondering if my sex clothes would still fit me. I hadn't grown that much, if at all. But my train of thought was interrupted by an aghast Nerus, wide awake and staring at the spot where I had been lying dead. As if snapping out of a trace, he glared at me when I stepped into the dormitory. It only took an instant for him to start shifting in a way all too familiar. I immediately jumped out of the way. Nerus leaped forward like a bullet, flying through the still open bathroom door before crashing against the wall. It sounded like he crashed against the sink, throwing everything on top of the floor. The moment I stuck my head out the door, a huge white hand grabbed me by the nape and lifted me. I let go of the towel and hung limply from Nerus's hand, not offering any resistance. In fact, I had a wide grin on my face. Where is he? Sparks started coming out of his free hand, growing in intensity until they turned to a moving mass of fire. Right here. Nerus found it seemed to be threatening to touch me with that fiery hand. Imagining how he could reduce me to smithereens if he wished to fill me with a most peculiar warmth. Alas, it wasn't the time for that. I blunted and showed him my tongue. You hurt me, Nerus. It's been just a little while and you already don't remember me? I suppose it has been closer to 200 years since you last saw me like this. What? The flames on Nerus's hand dissipated and he lifted me to eye level. He squinted, rattling that dusty old brain of his. His eyes then opened wide and his jaw fell to the floor. What? It's you. Yes, I'm very sorry I stopped going to our little secret meetings. I was busy being dead. And then being struck as an knee-jack shapeshifter. I said my owns to him, but Nerus was too dazed to interpret my little request for attention. I do not understand, but are you responsible for Sax disappearing? Yeah, well, I guess. Look into my eyes, Nerus. We talked about it, remember? The eyes are the window of the soul, correct? What the? Nerus was too sorry to even form an answer to my request, so I took the initiative. I clung to his arm and sneaked free from his grip. Then I swung my body and threw myself at him, landing on his chest with a hug. Nerus. He jumped, flustered. After a moment, I felt his arms wrap around me, gently pushing me closer to him. Hey, guess what? Yes. I looked up at his face, and slowly I climbed a bit higher and started unbuttoning his clothes. Each week, why don't you change? We should change the seats, too. The big wolf was at a loss of words, utterly perplexed. I even saw his eyes twitch a little. What good memories that brought back. Sorry, Nerus. I didn't mean to bully you. I'm still putting my thoughts in order. I see, but do tell me one thing. Are you truly Sax? I am. But how does that make any sense? You are an angel, and he... Nerus' thoughts trailed off, and he fell into an awkward silence. I still don't understand it completely myself, but I do have some theories. Don't worry. I'm already cooking up something that'll help us answer all the questions we have. I just need a little time. We only need to ask that certain uninvited guest. Sax. No, Obley, remember it. Yes, forgive me. Getting an answer doesn't matter to me, not right now. I may take a bath too and change my clothes. Then we can get comfortable, and once you are comfortable, we can do something together. Let's share a quiet moment together, as we always do. I rested my hand on his chest, taking his heat and hugging his neck as I considered his offer. Was this the same cologne he usually wore? Once I blocked out all the other smells, I noticed much sweeter it seemed. I don't know. I think I changed my mind. I don't want to let go, so you can't bathe now. Stand still right there until I've had my fill of cuddles. I was not asking openly. Before I could retort, every nerve in my body exploded in electricity at once. That Nerus still remembered the one weakness of the sentence that I had taught him, the thing he would immediately use against me. Now, let go of me, boy. Smugness dripped from his words as he tugged from my tail rather harshly. Only now I was starting to feel self-conscious of the fact I was still naked as he held me. I realized it was a very intimate position to be in. Alright, please stop that. Nerus put me down and patted my head. But I do share the sentiment. If possible, I would rather stay near you. It is as if he was afraid would vanish at any moment. I interrupted him. He didn't need to finish saying it. We haven't shared a bath together yet. That could be a sign. Where did all Sax's silence disappear to, I wonder. I was about to come up with a witty retort when I noticed a change in Nerus' eyes. He knelt and pulled me close again. He was gentle and he wouldn't let go unless I said something. As he snuggled against my head and shoulder, I noticed just how mad the fur on his face had become. And as if to add to the mess, as the reality of the situation settled down, the dam holding back his emotions finally broke down. I'm here, Nerus, and I'm not leaving. I whispered to him, eyes closed, and my arms wrapped around his neck once more. I patted the back of his head as if to remind him of my presence while I waited for him to let it all out. Neither of us kept track of time. After his sobs subsided, he cleaned his face and urged me to follow him to his dormitory. We took off hand in hand. I silently apologized to several as he would end up being the one to clean the mess I had made out of my room. I am at a loss of words, so I just blink. This is a memory. I give myself that reminder because watching it firsthand and standing in this corridor makes it feel so much more real. Like I am traveling back in time rather than watching a recording. But no one can see me or sense my presence, and the world moves on its own course despite me standing still. If it wasn't for those obvious tells, I would be fooled into thinking I'm in the past. I didn't expect this, but it makes sense. This is what it must be like to watch a recording while being conscious. That realization helps me gather my wits as I continue watching in silence. That machine could have warned me about this, but I suppose it isn't the first time, as soon as I know things I don't. I don't like that. I'm already getting used to that, but what am I going to do about it? After a long bath or relaxing on Nerus' silky, clean bed for a while, I went to retrieve a pair of pants and a shirt from my dormitory as we descended into the parlor to summon Sevils. He seemed most surprised to see me at first, and even after explaining the situation, he wouldn't stop asking trick questions to expose me as an imposter. It took a while, but eventually his expression softened and he sat down with us. Lord Obley, correct?
What are you going to do from now on? Me and Lord Nerus may believe you, but the other safe sitters won't be convinced of you being sacked so easily. Have you considered that? What will you do from now on? That's true. I won't be able to work as Nerus' warper anymore. Will you need to find a replacement? We hired a freelancer while you were sick. He only comes at the agreed time to pick up or drop a package. Oh, there's no problem then. I'll just stay holed up here forever. If you try to kick me out, I'll just knock on the window while you try to sleep until you let me in. Severus gave Nerus a look I didn't understand. The bigger safe sitter sweat and sipped from his wine. Incidentally, you said you weren't sure what happened to you, correct, Obley? Or why you were reborn as a safe sitter? I have a good hypothesis, but rather than boring you with something that might be pointless, I think we should ask someone who knows for sure. This time the two of them exchanged looks before returning their attention to me. Who could you be talking about? Have you noticed someone's been breaking into the mansion as of late, Nerus? His ears wiggled. I had a hunch, but I was never able to catch them in the act. His name is Locusti. He came here a couple of times to check on me. I think we could make him willing to answer our questions if we can capture him. Oh, will you happen to have a plan? We descendants know a thing or two about traps, and I'm sure you're aware. The one thing I can tell you for certain right now is that all of us who were affected by amnesia were descendants in hiding. Nerus nodded, half lost in his thoughts. Then the amnesia patients are being made to vanish to hide this from the safe sitters. I wanted to add that it was likely this was being hidden from other descendants as well, but that was still speculation on my part. Nerus' expression turned slightly somber. That must have been when he realized it. Right after the Battle of the Aeon, where many descendants were killed permanently, amnesiacs, descendants in hiding started popping up among the safe sitters. I had admitted to him that I had died and been stuck as a safe sitter ever since. It wasn't hard to figure out what killed me. He had even more questions now, but he agreed that my idea would be a smoother course of action. I wasn't a reliable source of information with so many details still unknown to me. I got up from my seat and addressed Severus. Severus, could you bring me some paper and something to write, please? I'll go to the kitchen to look for something I need. Wait for me outside near the front door. As you wish, Lord Obley.
What are you waiting for, Nerus? Let's go. The great safe sitter gulped down the last of his wine and got up. My light footsteps were followed by as much heavy ones on the way to the kitchen. Forgive us for the wait, Severus. Obley kept insisting on climbing on top of the sink. Oh, he does that all the time when helping me cook. Nerus shook his head with disapproval at Severus, and I cackled. Armed with a marker the servant got for me, I crouched down on the asphalt in front of the entrance and got to work. Nerus looked over my shoulder where I drew a circle and started filling it with lines, shapes, and symbols. Could this be one of those infamous descendant seals? Why, yes, this will intercept anyone trying to use warping magic in the vicinity. I took a few minutes to make sure everything was in place. After a second, I added one last detail, 4 letters. Being cheeky, aren't we? I grinned, hopping into the circle and making my best effort to adapt a tone of voice as sweet sounding as possible. It came out too high-pitched, but I rolled with it. Oh my, as soon as I stepped into the circle by accident. It's no use, the magic binds me, so I'm at your service now, Nerus. There's nothing I can hide from you and nothing I can refuse to do for you. I'm in so much trouble. Nerus closed his eyes as if suddenly feeling tired and patted my head the same way he always do when ruffling my feathers sacks. I do not require a magic circle to make you do what I want. A few back rubs and some praise are plenty. Still, are you sure you don't want to take advantage of this 1 in a million chance? The big state sitter opened his eyes, looking sharp all of a sudden. He leaned closer to not let Severos, who was respectfully witnessing the scene, listen to our conversation. 1 in a million chance. Don't be silly. I'll create as many chances as I want. And I'm glad you're back, Oakley, even if you look and act a little different. In fact, it's very nostalgic. I'm still very fond of the time we shared when we first met. Next time we're alone, I'll make sure to show you how grateful I am for this chance to still be with you, and that I don't love you any less now than I did before. My heart skipped a beat. Nerus wasn't intentionally trying to pluck my heartstrings. I could tell from his tone of voice he was being honest. Yet those words stuck by the walls of uncertainty that had formed around my heart, burrowing themselves deep within it like an arrow. I wonder if he realized the degree to which his words put me at ease, much like mine did to him. He got back just enough to stare into my eyes, and when he found exactly what he was looking for in them, he caressed my back and planted a kiss on my forehead. Now, be a good boy, bring this friend of yours to us, all right? Oh, yes, so I suppose it isn't the time to be playing around. With my face burning and my heart still feeling like it would jump out of my chest, at any moment I turn around and start rubbing my hands together. What now? Don't these kinds of circles require so to work? You've been consuming too much more than me, Nerus. That's silly folklore. Green sparks went flying between my hands, which, like butterflies fluttering their wings, got larger and began flying around me. The green energy eventually fused into a large jelly-like ball, which then I pressed into the circle I had drawn. The marker changed from black to a bright green, shining with power. Once the magic circle was done, both Nerus and Several stepped closer. I got up and with a proud smirk. Living Locusti is all that's left. How can we accomplish that? You must know my transformation is complete by now. Probably. I figure he'll come any moment now. Would you like me to sit a few seats while we wait? I realized that up until then I hadn't asked what time it was. The time for dinner was drawing near. Nerus asked Several to prepare something simple and brought 3 chairs from the dining hall. The two of us sat near the circle waiting for Locusti to show up. We waited mostly in silence, but Nerus took notice I was looking at him for a long time. He reached out and patted me. Several joined us soon enough, pushing a cart loaded with food, warm soup, sandwiches packed with eggs and vegetables, and lots of steaks, and a side dish made out of the leftover pasta, meat, and sauce. It wasn't the sort of food Several usually prepared, but it felt comforting and heartwarming on this occasion of the 3 of us eating outside. I can only imagine it was even more meaningful for them, who had feared we'd never be able to eat together again. Nerus ignored the sandwiches, choosing to instead eat most of the steaks. So it was probably foresaw this, seeing how many of them being prepared. He and I ate the sandwiches, and after some convinced, we got Nerus to join us for the soup. He seemed to like it because he drank most of it afterwards. However, he felt guilty about being such a glutton and told us he was full, leaving all the pasta for us. In a long while after we were done eating and Several's returned from washing the dishes, there was still no sign of Locusti. Nerus was telling me about how work had been these last few days,
When I realized a thick mist was flowing in from somewhere, the other two also noticed it. What is this? He's coming. The magic circle was engulfed by a blinding light, which, like a vacuum, started pulling in all the mist around us. What on? The light dissipated, and a blue descendant came into view. Nicosi fell on his butt to the floor, and before he could understand what was happening, Nerus jumped on him, twisting both of his arms behind his back and holding him in place. For Nerus, this wasn't any harder than handling a tiny, misbehaving kitten. What is this? Relax, Nicosi. It'll all be over soon. Obly, I reached into the bag we had brought from the kitchen a few hours ago. When dealing with descendants, there were certain precautions one had to take. First of all, you had to block their gills. They weren't for breathing, but for expelling the magic mist that allowed us to perform certain kinds of magic. This is why we had brought a tape roll from the kitchen. With Nerus breathing down his neck and holding his arms, the cousin could do little more than watch with teary eyes as I taped his gills shut. Why are you doing this? Nothing personal, brother. I am now holding a grudge over you leaving me to agonize as I water alive. Not at all. At that comment, Nicosi could do nothing but pull on a painfully awkward smile. Nerus shot me an inquisitive look, as if questioning if this was necessary or if I was being sadistic for the sake of revenge. But my nodding was reassuring enough. I was just trying to scare him, to make it seem like we were going to torture him, only to offer him an out at the last second by telling him to confess everything he knew about Sor Amnesia. Reaching into the bag which Cephals was so kindly holding open for me, and I took out 2 pieces of cotton that I then used to block my nostrils. The look of ease and anticipation on Nicosi's face transformed to horror once he saw what I took out next. That's... Both the state-sitters frowned slightly. Why was Nicosi so terrified of a simple lemon? Of course they didn't share our sense of smell, so they wouldn't know how vile the stench was for its descendants. I had thought it would feel terrible using this against Nicosi, but much to my surprise, it was surprisingly easy. There wasn't any guilt at all. Perhaps Nerus had been onto something. I grabbed a knife from the bag and used it to cut the lemon in half. Then I started making my way to the custody. Letting me know how terrible I was, he agreed to tell us everything. Nerus let go of him, his startled face showing a hint of disturbance from us making the custody quiet. It was a bit funny to me knowing Nerus was no stranger to reducing descendants to a crisp whenever he got involved in a fight with them. Swiftly killing a descendant means that he'll regenerate later, perhaps not even remembering what happened to them. From Nerus' perspective, this act of bullying might have been much meaner. I shook my head violently. It wasn't the time to think about something I wouldn't understand. Anyway, calm down, Nicosi. If you answer our questions, everything will be alright. Okay, but what do you want to know? Tell us all you know, from the beginning. Nicosi wiped his face with his sleeve and nodded. It all started 200 years ago with the first battle of the Aeon. The State-Sitters' attack was ultimately frustrated, yes, but we still had to pay an enormous price. The Aeon managed to wipe out many descendants, but damaging their souls so that they couldn't regenerate. We didn't know what would happen to them. We made no mistake, their souls were still their descendants, but it was like they had been made to behave like little mortal. I'm talking about Sonisha. Tell us about it. We might forgive you. I saw hesitation loomed over the Cussy's face, but quickly went away while threatening to get the cut lemon anywhere near him. Letting me know how terrible I was, he agreed to tell us everything. Nerus let go of him, his startled face showing a hint of disturbance from us making the Cussy cry. It was a bit funny to me, knowing Nerus was no stranger to reduce the descendants of Quisp whenever he got involved in a fight with them. Swiftly killing a descendant means that the hero will generate later, perhaps not even remembering what happened to him. From Nerus' perspective, this act of bullying might have been much meaner. I shook my head violently. It wasn't the time to think about something I wouldn't understand. Anyway, calm down, Lacusti. If you answer our questions, everything will be alright. Okay, but what do you want to know? Tell us all you know, from the beginning. Lacusti wiped his face with his sleeve and nodded. It all started 200 years ago, when the first battle of the Aeon. The State Center's attack was ultimately frustrated, yes, but we still had to pay an enormous price. The Aeon managed to wipe out many descendants damaging their souls so that they couldn't regenerate. We didn't know what would happen to them. Make no mistake, their souls were still their descendants, but it was like they had been made to behave like mortal souls. Would they reincarnate into new descendants? Would they go through the Nerus process and fade away? Either way, it was clear the people they were would be lost forever unless we did something. Then Osiris told us to leave everything to him. And that was all for a long while. We didn't know what he had done until a few years later when he gathered me and a few others to tell us the truth. Those who fell during the battle of the Aeon hadn't faded away. Instead, Osiris put a spell on their souls so they would be reborn to state-center bodies. I believe you state-centers say there are 2 generations of Soulnesiacs, yes? The first generation aged and died because the damage done to their souls made them virtually identical to mortals. Then they were incarnated as first state-centers to repeat the process. This might not be the right word. Let's look at Obli, for example. I'm not aware of the circumstances of your life as a state-center, Obli, but if we went over the clinical records for our deceased Soulnesiacs, we would find at least a couple that led a life just like yours, or at least many of them would have been you reincarnating. Osiris couldn't prevent memory loss, but moving the soul to a new body without time for it to change to preserve your accidents. That's why you are still you. Moving on, once their souls recovered, then Soulnesiacs became ageless again. This was the second generation of Soulnesiacs. Normally, the regained symptom will sort of disappear alongside the aging symptom, but it didn't because of Osiris' spell. Osiris' Soulnesiac spell had 3 effects. To make the soul be reborn in a state-center body. This way their souls would have enough time to heal and they wouldn't fade away. It would call switch. This is what we use to turn them back into descendants, and the reason they fell sick recently. And finally, a memory eraser component. This is the cause of the forgetting symptom for the second generation Soulnesiacs, but their intended effect was to make the descendant forget they were ever reincarnated as state-centers. Obli, you managed to find a way to bypass the third part of the spell, right? When I started regaining my first few memories of Obli, I realized it was pretty strange. When did you start remembering? It was around the time Nomino informed you about the second battle of the Aeon. Anyway, I ended up reasoning out what Lacusti has told us this for, more or less. I wasn't sure about the memory eraser part, but once the news about the Soulnesia Pace's vacancy arrived, I was certain. I thought if they did remember their life of stasis as well, some of them might have wanted to stay behind, right? Some of them did, which caused the spell to go wild the more they resisted the transformation. But no one was crazy enough to try what you did. Nerus raised an eyebrow. What did you do exactly? Think about it this way, Nerus. Nerus' objective was this ploy was to save me and the other descendants that were struck down by the Aeon. The way the Cussies described it, the memory eraser part of the spell comes after the transformation is complete. But what would happen if, because of some abnormality, a descendant recovered most of his memories before the transformation was complete? It was a no-brainer. In that case, most of their memories or descendants would be deleted as well. Memories are an important component of each person. If you wipe someone's memories clean, what guarantee would there be that they would live through the same experiences and grow into the same person twice? Despite everyone's souls having their accidents, even the results of these may vary. In other words, the spell might as well be killing that descendant. Nerus' eyes reflected understanding one moment and sought the next when he realized where I was getting at. Essence abnormalities, even sabotage. Aceros didn't ignore the chance of any of these happening. Again, I didn't have a way to check if I was right until the deed was done, so I wasn't sure it would work, but I thought if I became the safe sister that would remember most of his life as a descendant, there should be a failsafe that would prevent the third part of the spell from activating. You're scary, Obley. What if you were wrong? You would have gone through all that just to be erased. I figured if that was the case, you would have tried harder to stop me. It seemed risky, but luck was on my side. Then, why didn't you tell us? Nerus clutched his tongue after he accidentally said out loud what he was thinking. He asked us to forget about it and to continue with the interrogation. I felt pains and guilt but conceded his request. I wanted to talk about it, but now it wasn't the right moment. I wasn't sure when it would be. However, the question had still thrown me off, and I was now drawing a blank as to what the next question should be. So Nerus asked it first. Lucas is correct. Why did you break into our mansion earlier? Well, at first it was because Obley had finally been wedded to the Soul Amnesiac registry, so I came one night just to check on him. Later I returned to trigger his recall and then to try to convince him to let the transformation happen. Wait, did you come because of the Soul Amnesiac registry? Oh, I hadn't mentioned that yet. That's how Aceros made us keep track of the Soul Amnesiacs. We simply used the Safe Sisters registry. The great Safe Sisters' face became somber for a moment, but then he shook his head like a disappointed parent and patted Lucas on the shoulder to calm him down. It only made him more uncomfortable because Lucas noticed I was glaring at him, though. It would seem that descendant spies are much more insidious than we thought. One other thing, Lucas, the reason the recall happened is the opposing second battle of the Aeon, correct? Yes, talking about espionage, that got leaked to us as well. Osiris wanted us to be as prepared as possible, so he ordered the recall. Interesting. I have one more request for you then. What could that be? Where's Osiris now? He's on Earth. He's helping with the preparations for the battle. Do you mind taking us to him now? Nerus and Severus joined Lucas in giving me a dubious looks. I could take you to him, but the two Safe Sisters too? I'm not built for events, Lord Obley. I would prefer to stay and take care of the mansion while you're out. I understand. What about you, Nerus? I image you must have a good reason to want this, even if I can't fathom one. I don't think anyone will immediately attack you. You could make the place go up in flames if provoked. They would be too scary to try. And when they see you, with me, and Lakushi don't notice something is up. There's still the trouble, but he agreed nevertheless. Lakushi might have not wanted to go along with this, but he didn't have a choice. I still have my memories of sets, Lakushi. If you don't want to take us there, I can do it instead. If the three of us arrive at the base together, then there's less of a chance of trouble breaking out. Do you agree? I'm not planning anything bad. We are descendants. We don't have the heart to betray our brothers. Yes, but as long as you think it's going to be alright. I will. Trust me. I helped Lakushi remove the tape off his gills and I patted him on the head. Well, we'll be back later, Sevels. It'll just take an hour or two if it goes well. I see. Best of luck to you. We stood near Lakushi, his gills open, expelling the gray mist that had visited me every once in a while since I started living under Nerus' roof.
Or more accurately, at the Nerus enemy to the Soronesiac registry. The world around us became unfocused and twisted. Lakushi's warping felt very different from mine, which was instant. My vision grew cloudy, and I felt extremely light for a moment. But soon the mist around us dispersed. Gravity started weighing down on us again. We found ourselves at a different location. It was a large circular room. Countless descendants, all wearing robes like the Kustis, were sitting nearby or in the middle or walking somewhere else. The moment they noticed us, however, their eyes stabbed us like daggers. Or they stared near us, rather. It's okay, everyone. Don't let us distract you. You turn towards us with an urgent expression. Come on, you two. Hurry. We hastily made our way out of the main chamber. Nerus didn't seem to mind the countless stairs, but the restrained way he moved betrayed some caution. He also seemed to have trouble fitting through the doorways we came across. This place wasn't prepared for his dimensions. The Christian hurried us along, walking a few steps ahead of us to introduce us to the descendants we came across, although I already knew some of them. They must have been transferred from the base we used to work at. On that topic, I was expecting to arrive there when Lakushi walked us here. It made sense we didn't, since it had been destroyed during the first battle. Its remnants were probably still on the second moon. Anyway, if they weren't intimidated by Nerus, they would have been some heartfelt reunions. We went upstairs and arrived at a large meeting room. There were only a few descendants there. A tall black and white descendant with frills coming out of the sides of his head stood out. His expression didn't move an inch when he noticed us. He got up from his seat and greeted us. Welcome back, Obliviate. You took your time returning to us. I hadn't meant to, but I couldn't help but roll my eyes. Yes. It's nice to see you again at Sevels. He then greeted Lakushi and finally looked at Nerus. And why is he here? I am here at Obli's request. I believe we have not met before. I am Nerus Manus. I am Oceros. Oceros left introductions at that and looked at me. Did we arrive at a bad moment? I suppose Lakushi already explained the situation to you. Yes. Was all that true? I have not concealed anything from him. It was all the truth. I wonder, Lakushi's emotional type, will he respect someone he believes in them without question? Could he even question why you went through such lengths to make us forget our lives as safe centers ourselves? I don't know why you would do that, or how you managed to pull off such a crafty ploy. Just what kind of magic did you use to make it possible? Did you intermingle with Nominal, the enemy, to create your spell? Is that why you wanted to hide it? I knew I couldn't bring up my lingering questions up front. I wouldn't need to come up with a roundabout way to confirm what motivated Oceros to rape the Soronesiacs memories. Something was off about him. I remember him being the serious stoic type, but with a goofy interior. In that sense, he reminded me of Nerus. But there was no underlying humor or warmness in the way he was looking at me then. I had figured he wouldn't be happy with my little ploy. He had wanted to keep his plan a secret to everyone but a select group of people I wasn't a part of. But I hadn't expected such coldness as I returned. What was it about his plan that was terrible enough to warrant looking at me like that? Why would you need to hide anything of Cyrus? I'm sure everyone would be grateful if they knew how much you've done for us. My eyes widened when I finally noticed that I had spoken without thinking. Both he and Lacussy were taken aback by my words. However, Cyrus closed his eyes and after a moment he sighed and forced a little smile. I'm sorry, Bolivar. I am glad to have you back. Still, I can't deny I'm surprised to see you again. Since you struggled so hard, I figured you'd choose to stay with Nerus here. The reason I returned involves Nerus, actually. You see, he told me he wanted to quit being a great safe sitter. I think at least for the upcoming battle, he should join the Descendants' side and participate in the battle. Did I hear that right? Yes. Oblivion, are you certain that part of your mind didn't get wiped? Perhaps the part in charge of your common sense. When I was the only one suggesting it, it did seem like a ridiculous proposition. Which is why I was waiting for Nerus to back me up. However, when I turned to him, I realized he was just as confused as Cyrus. It occurred to me I might have been off on some of my assumptions. It wasn't anything I couldn't fix, but I need to make a tactical retreat first. To not lose my nerve, I spat out the first words that came to mind. I know how it sounds, but Nerus is one of the greatest warriors among the safe sitters. With him on our side, we have an overwhelming advantage. Osiris is expressing it himself. He wasn't blind to not realize the value of Nerus as an ally. What bothered him was the notion of a great safe sitter turning on his kind. And Nerus' reaction wasn't helping him entertain that idea. Excuse us, Osiris, we just need one moment. Yes, I agree. Nerus and I held hands and walked to a corner away from everyone else's prying ears. Obly, what are you thinking? I thought the best course of action for us would be to help the Descendants. Neither of us wanted the world to end, right? Yes, that is true. Remember the conversation we had back when we were playing that fighting game? Nerus closed his eyes and nodded. Back then he claimed he wanted to quit being a great safe sitter. But that wouldn't be enough to attain any of the lifestyles he described shortly after. If he kept working for the safe sitters, then his life wouldn't change much. Perhaps he would have more or less free time to perform a different task every day, but his lifestyle wouldn't suffer any radical change. Deep down he understood this and had the resolve to fundamentally change his way of life, but now he was hesitating. I understand why you think this is the best course of action, but... He lowered his gaze and his ears pointed forward, looking for the right words. I struggled with the thought of fighting my fellow safe sitters. When he got set aside, I wouldn't participate in the fight at all. I wanted to prioritize spending what time you had left together. The situation has changed, but, since it was okay now, we could have had a long future together ahead of us. But because of the second battle of the Aeon, that future had come under threat as well. However, that didn't mean it would be easy to turn against those he had dedicated his life to guide and protect so far. So Nerus still chose to not fight at all. I understand, Nerus. I'm sorry I should have asked you this earlier. If you would rather not get involved, that's okay. I'll take care of it. It might be weak, compared to you, but I can hold my own when it comes to fighting. It's not that, but Nerus sighed, lowering his ears. Tell Sales I will help. I will steel myself for the upcoming battle. Are you sure? We went back and forth a couple of times, me saying he wasn't obligated to participate, and him insisting he was willing to go. And insisting he was willing to. Eventually, Nerus got tired and grabbed me by the snout to shut me up. And participating in the discussion. He then dragged me back to the cells before letting go of me. Cells raised an eyebrow but kept silent. But even after Nerus informed him of his decision, Cells didn't seem very convinced, and managed to get him to promise he'd consider it. I took that as a good enough victory after my miscalculation earlier and moved on to the next topic. In any case, I had a conversation with Naruto I think the two of you should know about. Before I succumbed to my illness, I had been spying on him and we ended up having an interesting talk. He told me that he thought the Aeons were heretic and that he wanted them gone. Both for Cells and Nerus raised an eyebrow. That doesn't make sense. Was he trying to trick you somehow? I don't know. Naruto's a strange creature. If he was lying to me, I couldn't tell. He seemed angry, so I thought that maybe there might have been some truth to his words. What do you think, Nerus? It's the first time I'm hearing of this. I have to admit that even among the great sage sitters, we don't see him very often. We don't understand what he's thinking. I suppose it wouldn't be impossible for him to be harboring ulterior motives. Did he say anything else? He said he wanted me to participate in the fight, that I would know what side to fight for. If he somehow knew who I really was, then he might have guessed I would come back to you. I suppose that makes sense if he is an enemy of the Aeons. Maybe he wants to sabotage his plan and thinks I'm an important part of it. Maybe he wants to sabotage his plan and thinks I'm an important part of that. That's the best case scenario for us. There was another possibility which Aceros quickly realized. Or that could be what he wants you to think, and in reality, you are an important piece for the Sage Sitters to succeed. Aceros, do you think I come all the way here just to stab you in the back? My apologies, that is not what I meant, but that you might be an unwilling pawn and a ploy of his obliviate. I can't deny that possibility. The descendant leader closed his eyes and hid his hands behind his back. I would need to discuss this information with the others. You are dismissed. Yes, thank you for listening, Aceros. Whether Nerus will be allowed to participate in the battle is also to be decided. I gave him a little bow and went to pull for Nerus' sleeve. He was already spinning on his heel before I even did that. Lakushi rejoined us on the way out. So that was Aceros. He falls more in line with what I usually expect of the descendants. Are I and Lakushi failing to meet expectations? I chuckled. You two are, how to say it, cuter than expected? Let's go with that, yes. Well, did things go the way you wanted, Obley? It went as well as I could have hoped. I understand that Aceros is hesitant and still a feeling. Still, I hope he allows us to help. This may be a bold suggestion, but could we not show up to the battle regardless of what he decides? I suppose so. I giggled to try to pass it off as a joke to Lakushi, but it was an idea worth considering. Our future hung on the Sage Sitters losing. If the descendants refuse our help, then so be it. We'll fight for our own sake. In the heat of the battle, it would be much harder to refuse our help. Would they rather let Nerus fight Naruto or risk becoming a target for the both of them? The answer was obvious. Are you going to stay here, Obley? I was planning to return to Nerus' mansion now. I would prefer that. I would I would like to sit down, but the furniture here is too small to accommodate me. Well, I see. Let me take you there then. Nakusi eagerly guided us back to the room we first warped into. The descendants nearby seemed to already have grown used to our presence. In fact, some familiar faces got closer to greet me. I figured that word of us being ourselves and making some deal had always spread. They realized Nerus' presence wasn't anything to be afraid of, although they still seemed to be keeping their distance from him. After exchanging a couple of greetings, I apologized, saying that I was tired and I wanted to go for now. I promised them I would be back earlier tomorrow. So we get to see Nerus and Sats again. Only this time, instead of Sax, is Obley. So apparently Obley is a descendant, not an angel. And Nerus referred to the descendants as angels, but the whole time the angels were descendants. So remember right before Sats got sick, he was talking with somebody about and I believe that somebody was Oceros that he was talking to right before he got sick back in the prologue. So apparently Oceros was the one behind the Soulnesiacs, and that when a descendant dies, he didn't want their souls to be lost forever, so he used some kind of magic spell to keep the souls, so he'd be able to keep the souls, and the soul would be reincarnated, and then after a certain amount of time, I believe that soul would become the same person again, but instead their memories would be erased. So, but the big thing is that in Obley's case, that didn't happen. That part where the memories are supposed to be erased, that didn't happen. He still has all his memories from when he was Sax. He still has all of his memories of Nerus, and he's a kind of nominal and all that. If it did work, then Obley will have no idea who Nerus was. So we got to meet the leader of the descendants of Ceros, who's behind the whole Soulnesiac thing, and why he came up with the whole thing. Why he wanted the memories to be erased. Not quite sure yet. So I'm very happy that Obley was able to reunite with Nerus. And while Sax died, well, he was Obel the whole time, but he was Sax. And when he died of Sax, he was reincarnated as Obel. He got to keep all his memories from when he was Sax. So in my opinion, I really consider Obel to be the same person as Sax because he still had the same memories. In my view, anyway. So there's going to be a second battle of the Aeon, and Nerus made it clear just now to Obel that he's going to fight for the descendants against his people, the Say Sitters. I mean, yeah, he really felt conflicted about fighting against his fellow Say Sitters, but he decided to fight with Obel and the descendants instead.
So we got to see the Cussy again. We first saw him in Biting and Lisa's story. And given that that story took place almost 1,000 years after this right now, obviously the Cussy will be around for a very long time after whatever happens here is over with. So that's all I have to say for now. All the information for the game is in the description box below. Thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.